A redneck from Kentucky gets married. On his wedding night, he finds his bride in the sexiest piece of lingerie he's ever laid eyes on. She looks at him and says, "I want you to know that you'll be my first and only man." The redneck quickly redresses and angrily grabs his wife and throws her in the truck and drops her off at her parents' home. A few minutes later, his father calls and asks what's the matter. To which the redneck replies, "If she ain't good enough for her own family, she ain't good enough for mine." An old lady wanted to give her grandson $10 as a Christmas present, so she went to her local bank to make a withdrawal. The old lady handed her bank card to the teller and said, "I would like to withdraw $10. The teller told her, "For withdrawals less than $100, please use the ATM. The old lady wanted to know why. The teller returned her bank card and irritably told her, "These are the rules. Please leave if there is no further matter. There is a line of customers behind you." The old lady remained silent for a few seconds and handed her card back to the teller and said, "Please help me withdraw all the money I have." The teller was astonished when she checked the account balance. She nodded her head, leaned down, and respectfully told her, "You have $300,000 in your account, but the bank doesn't have that much cash currently. Could you make an appointment and come back again tomorrow?" The old lady then asked how much she could withdraw immediately. The teller told her any amount up to $3,000. "Well, please let me have $3,000 now." The teller, with a kind smile, handed $3,000 to her. The old lady put $10 in her purse and said, "Please deposit this $2,990 back into my account." The scene was the nursing home. As old Doug was nearing his last few breaths, his nurse, his wife, his daughter, and 2 sons are with him. He asked for 2 witnesses to be present and a camcorder be in place to record his last wishes, and when all is ready, he begins to speak. "My son Bernie, I want you to take the Mayfair houses. My daughter Sybil, you take the apartments over in the East End. My son Jamie, I want you to take over the offices in the city center. Sarah, my dear wife, please take all the residential buildings on the banks of the river." The nurse and witnesses are blown away as they did not realize his extensive holdings. As old Doug slips away, the nurse says, "Mrs. Smith, your husband must have been such a hard-working man to have accumulated all this property." Sarah replies, "Property? The old bugger had a paper route." Jenny, who was rather tired of putting up with her rude and nasty co-workers and sleazy boss, decided to start her own business. After settling in, she decides to message her friend. "Kate," she wrote, "I finally left my old crappy job and started my own business." Happy to hear this news, Kate orders a bouquet of flowers to send to Jenny's new location. The next day, a bouquet of flowers shows up at the office with a tag attached that says "Rest in Peace." Confused, Jenny calls up Kate and asks if she sent those flowers. Kate explained that there must have been a mix-up at the florist, as her note said something entirely different. Being rather annoyed, Kate calls the florist where she ordered the flowers from. "We're so sorry," said the lady on the other end. "We know you're upset, but you need to understand something. We're also trying to deal with a funeral at the other side of town that just got a bouquet of flowers that says, 'It's about time you left those shitheads behind. Enjoy your new freedom.'" A husband and wife went to counseling after 20 years of marriage. When asked what the problem was, the wife went into a passionate, painful tirade listing every problem they had ever had in the 20 years they had been married. She went on and on and on. Neglect, lack of intimacy, emptiness, loneliness, feeling unloved and unlovable, an entire laundry list of unmet needs she had endured over the course of their marriage. Finally, after allowing this to go on for a sufficient length of time, the therapist got up and walked around the desk. Asking the wife to stand, the therapist embraced and kissed her passionately as her husband watched with a raised eyebrow. The woman shut up and quietly sat as though in a daze. The therapist turned to the husband and said, "This is what your wife needs at least 3 times a week. Can you manage it?" The husband thought for a moment and replied, "Well, I can drop her off here on Mondays and Wednesdays, but on Fridays I fish." One day, there was a competition between heaven and hell. The angels in heaven all went head to head with various demons from hell. There were archery tournaments, jousting, sword fighting, even tug of wars. After several days of intense battles and challenges, the scores were tied. God decided that Jesus would face off against the devil on their ability to use computers. The winner would decide the outcome of the competition. After 6 long hours of making spreadsheets, designing web pages, and writing programs, a thunderstorm suddenly knocked the power out. When they rebooted their computers, Satan started screaming, "It's all lost! All my work is damn gone!" Meanwhile, Jesus quietly printed out all his work and turned it in. Satan complained, "It's not fair. He must have cheated. How come he didn't lose his work too?" God just smiled and said, "Jesus saves." 2 aliens landed in the Arizona desert near a gas station that was closed for the night. They approached one of the gas pumps, and the younger alien addressed it saying, "Greetings, Earthling. We come in peace. Take us to your leader." The gas pump, of course, didn't respond. The young alien became angry at the lack of response. The older alien said, "I'd calm down if I were you." The younger alien ignored the warning and repeated his greeting. Again, there was no response. Angry at the pump's haughty attitude, he drew his ray gun and said gruffly, "Greetings, Earthling. We come in peace. Take us to your leader, or I will fire." The older alien again warned his comrade, saying, "You probably don't want to do that. I really think that will make him mad." "Rubbish," replied the young alien. He aimed his weapon and opened fire. There was a huge explosion. A massive fireball roared towards him and blew the younger alien off his feet and threw him in a burnt, smoking mess about 200 yards away into a cactus patch. Half an hour passed. When he finally regained consciousness, he refocused his 3 eyes, straightened his bent antenna, and looked dazedly at the older, wiser alien who was standing over him, shaking his big green head. "What a ferocious creature!" exclaimed the young, fried alien. "He damn near killed me. How did you know he was so dangerous?" The older alien leaned over, placed a friendly feeler on his crispy friend, and replied, "If there's one thing I've learned during my intergalactic travels, never mess with a guy who can loop his privates over his shoulder and stick it in his ear."